Welcome to Frenchie's Forum, where the floor is always open for discussion. No topic is taboo. Come on in and join me for today's episode. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming in to Frenchie's Forum. I'm Frenchie, your hostess, and today I just want to take a little time telling you about myself, some of the things I'm wanting to do through my podcast. I will be doing some live later on down the road. I've been trying out different pieces of equipment to see where I get the best quality. Right now, my camera is not all that great. I'll be looking into upgrading that as well. But the first thing I want to talk to y'all about is how much hate there is towards people of differing political opinions, religious opinions, all sorts of different opinions. Like nobody can respect someone's own opinion. And that is one of our freedoms in this country. We have the liberty to think for ourselves, to open our mouths and say what we think and what we feel. But we cannot demand that somebody do something simply because we don't agree with it, or we don't like it, or it's not something you would do. That is why we are called a democracy. We take the majority, we do what we feel is best for the majority of people. When you make those tough decisions, that means there's going to be somebody, some group out there that is not going to be happy with the decisions that you made. But back to talking to people. I think it all stems from the social media world where everything is on social media. You've got bullying through Facebook for kids and adults. It's just really scary. The one thing that comes to mind when I talk about scary, this is how it is so easy for evil to creep in. Evil doesn't look like evil. Evil looks like me. Evil looks like you and the people around you, the people who you work with. You never know. I am a fanatic. My husband really laughs because me and my ghost show stories and my detective stories. I always wanted to be a police officer when I was young. I ended up out of high school going into the military, and I became a pharmacy technician for the Army. I was stationed at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. But I lost my train of thought because I heard something outside. See, this is why I need a soundproof studio so I can keep on thought. But anyway, talking to people. You know, I love talking to people. That was one thing. When I worked in a hospital, I used to drive people crazy. Sometimes I'd be walking up and down the halls on the floor. Hello, good morning. How are you? Some people are too busy looking at their phones, looking at the floor. But I would make it a point to say, hi, good morning. I would even talk to some of the patients' families. I'm not even a nurse. I worked for the pharmacy, but if I saw someone in need, I put out my hand to help them. I remember when I was a little girl, my grandparents, especially on my dad's side, I remember the men in the family getting together. They would sit around, drink coffee, sometimes alcohol, and they would talk about politics, religion. Nobody ended up killing each other. They'd go home at the end of the day. It was just conversation. I think today we don't have enough conversation about it. I, for one, am guilty of that. I do have my, some people that I talk to politics and religion about. But I don't really talk about politics with the person that lives down over the hill in the house on the corner. Because I live in Gold Canyon, Arizona, and I live up on a hill, up on a ridge. There's only 4 houses up here, and the views are just magnificent. And as you can see right here, right above me right here, is the view from my front door. It is very beautiful here. It's peaceful up here. But I will tell you, if somebody tries to come up here and infringe on my liberties and my freedom, they're not going to like what they meet at the door. And that goes for my husband as well. I recently caught a Facebook video from a gentleman in Indiana named Ashley Kelly. He is a gentleman who is trying to help people unite on the home front. Don't fight, but unite and be a light for all of those around you. And I believe that those of us who can see what is going on in this country, I don't think we sit down and we talk enough and we get together and we unite, which is something I think we need to do. It's 60 days away from the election for the president of the United States. And there's a lot riding on this election. As most of you know, you've seen it on the news and on your social media about, Joe Biden and his mental faculties. And, I noticed that months ago. My husband and I talk incessantly about politics, and we don't always agree. And sometimes we just have to stop and agree to disagree, because he's not going to sway me to his side and I'm not going to sway him to my side. But we still love each other and we're a team. And we noticed this about Joe Biden in the beginning. And I have my assumptions. I have worked in the medical field. He is in such a high profile position right now, running for the president of the United States, that I believe while he is in the basement, I believe they are trying medications on him and getting it to where at least he's got some cognitive ability back. But our deepest fears, and a lot of other Americans, is that he is going to be a puppet for the Democratic Party. That once he gets office, he's going to be declared incompetent, that he cannot perform the duties for which he is appointed or elected to. And Kamala Harris is going to go right in there. I can say that if it were my husband, what Jill Biden is doing, I would never do to the man I love. To let her husband be used by a political party, and I say this all the time to my husband, and he tells me that she's in it just as much as he is for the money, which I think after a time you do become accustomed to that. And that's part of the problem with Washington, is you have all these senators and these congressmen who have been in there their entire political careers. If you want to instill change, it is done at the polls. We need to start backing people who want to run for office. I believe there should be term limits, and this not be a history. The president can only have 2 term limits. Same should be for any other elected position, in my opinion. It's scary. I've had conversations with friends in the past about the situation with whatever president was in office at the time. And I used to tell them you cannot put all of that on the president. We elect these people in there, and they're the ones who hold up the bills. They're the ones who haven't been doing anything for the American people. And I don't know how many decades. It's all about money and power. These big corporations have bought up almost everything. If you look at the major media outlets, the multi-billion-dollar companies are owned by one parent company, and they influence every law that is made and passed in that White House. It is scary to think. It is just scary to think the evil that is already in the White House. That we as American people, we do need to stand up. We need to stand up for what is right. We need to not let them get away with this anymore. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if we all come together as one team and march to the steps of the White House. I don't know. If someone has a suggestion and any kind of groups want to get involved, I'm serious. I don't believe that the people in government really know how mad the American people are. The ones who are not blinded, the ones who are not wearing these blinders like this, and can only see what's in front of them. They don't know to go left or right unless the person back there on the wagon tells them which way to go. And for me, that's sad. And I understand where they're coming from. The media is biased. Some of it is lies. I'm not going to say all of it, but a lot of it is lies. It's opinion based. I remember when we used to have newscasters on back in the old days, there was Walter Cronkite and Diane Sawyer, and I can't even remember. I'd have to sit and think about it. But these people really wanted to get the news out to you so that you could make a decision based on the truth. And that doesn't exist anymore. It's just so many lies. I listen to several different, news stations. I get online and I read. I pick up newspapers. It's amazing. It's a no wonder people don't know their head from their ass, because it is so dictated. We are being used. And speaking of used, let's talk a little bit about COVID-19. When I heard that started, my husband works in the entertainment industry. He drives a semi tractor trailer. And we've been on several tours with some country stars, WWE, and also, I forget what else he's done some other things. But when COVID broke out and no mass gatherings, business went to nothing. I mean, literally nothing, and it still hasn't come back. And I mean, I've worked in the medical field. I know about PPE, and I hate to tell you all, but these masks are nothing but a ploy. They're seeing, it is a test. They are seeing how far they can go before the American people are going to say enough is enough. Let's look at the riots. You got the riots going on in some of these cities, and I can tell you, if I had been president of the United States, which my stepson used to always tell me to run for president, and I told him no, because I will be assassinated within 30 days, because I would not put up with that bull crap. I would shut that freaking government down until everyone decided to do the right things. To be honest with you, I don't know how some of those people sleep at night. And I don't know how they look in the mirror at themselves and be proud of who they have become and who they are. Makes me sick. Makes me sick. But back to the riots. If I had been president, when they first started out, especially in Portland, with Chaz or whatever it was called, I don't know, some kind of asinine name, I told my husband, I said, you know what? I would give them 72 hours before I took the National Guard in there, whether they liked it or not, because it's my job as the president of these United States to protect all United States citizens, even the ones who were in those cities run by Democrats who can't get their head out of their ass and do the right thing and take care of business. I mean, look at Portland's mayor running off out of his condo because of these riots instead of putting his foot down and letting the law handle it. That's part of the judicial system. The judicial system needs to be revamped. I agree. It does need to be revamped. I think you need to have a committee that sits down. I don't care if it's groups from every state in the country, and you convene a committee, a meeting, and let's all go in and talk about it, and let's work it out. There's no need to fight. That was one of the things I told my husband. I said, if I was down there in these riots and they're screaming in my face, I would think I would turn around and say, you know what? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I don't see much gray. I see black, I see white. You're either right or you're wrong. Now, I can come to agreement in the gray area if I feel so, but it's hard for me. I see both sides of the story. Two sides to all stories, whether it's relationship, parents, and divorced kids from divorced families, and mom and dad are fighting with each other. I mean, it's the same thing in politics. I mean, I look at them and it's like people throwing a temper tantrum. I mean, this thing with Nancy Pelosi and the way she has handled being caught doing something the rest of the American people cannot. And it reminded me, when my stepson first came to live with us when he was 8, he came from a family of 4 children. And he became an only child in our home because I was unable to have children. But he was my husband's son, and I raised him like my own, and I loved him as if he were my own. But I remember one day he was getting reprimanded, or I don't even say reprimanded, but I was having a discussion with him about why he didn't take the garbage out. And he wanted to blame my sister-in-law, his cousin, the little baby who's in a car seat in a crib. He was trying to blame it on the child. That's why he didn't get the trash out. This is what all this reminds me of. I get upset. I find it quite comical at times. I can't believe what I see and what I hear. But, it hasn't always been like that for me in my life. I was molested by a family member when I was young, up till I was about 16, and it did damage. Did damage that I am past now, but it affected me even into my adulthood. And I used to be very withdrawn, not real open with people, even though I wanted to be open. But I was afraid to trust people. So because the people, the one person that I should have been able to trust, inherently trust, and they molested me. But like I said, I've gotten over it. I've come to terms with it. This is funny to say. It's not even funny. But while I was in the service, this is when I first started dealing with it because it was affecting my adult life. And I didn't realize how much till I got out on my own. Because living under the roof with the molester, life is a little different than when you get out on your own. So, I turned to alcohol and became an alcoholic for a while. And in that time period, I was calling my mother at home. I was crying all the time, and I was on duty one day down at headquarters. And my captain called me into the office, and he was explaining to me that my mother had called because she was worried about me, saying that I was going to have a nervous breakdown. And I don't know what else she told him, but, he said, well, you wouldn't know by her actions, her daily actions. She goes to work, but he ordered me to go to group therapy. So I started going to group therapy on base, and I was in a group of women. And my first time there, they were going around the room talking, sharing their experiences and the pain and all this. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, what in the hell are you so screwed up about? Because what happened to me was nothing compared to some of the situations these other women had been in. I almost felt like, what the hell are you crying about? What the hell are you crying about? And from that moment on, I vowed to get over it. And it took some years to get over it and to confront the molester and all those crazy steps they want you to do in counseling. And it was a rough ride for a while. I mean, I buried the hatchet, forgave the person, and there were people in my family who couldn't understand how I could forgive this person. And it's like I told them, I said, I could never get the person to admit what they had done. It wasn't going to happen. And I told my mom and some other family members that if me forgiving them gave them the power to forgive themselves, then it was worth me forgiving them. Because you are not born a molester. You are trained to be a molester. And when I think back in history and some of the things that were happening in the family, with some cousins and some other things, I kind of figured out later on in life that this was going on before me, and that I was going to have to hate every generation of my lineage. And I just was not happy with that. But that's how evil works. And when they say the sins of the father are passed on, that's one of those sins that's passed on. But enough about that. I became a much stronger woman because of that. I met my first husband in the military. After I got out of the military, we proceeded to move to Alaska. That wasn't the plan. We were supposed to go back to West Virginia, which is where I'm from, so that I could go to pharmacy school and become a pharmacist. And then we were going to move to Alaska. But that's another story. But he up and changed the plans, and off to Alaska he went about 3 months before I got out. I had a decision at that point, which I never told him for 20 years. And I don't even know if I was real with myself after a few years. But I realized before my first anniversary that I should not have married this man, that I had made a mistake. And at the point where I got out of the military, where he was already in Alaska, the best thing I could have done for myself was to say, sayonara, we're done with this marriage, because it hadn't even been a good marriage the first year. It was right before our first anniversary when he got the burr up his butt to move up to Alaska before our planned move when I wanted to go. And it was near our first anniversary, and I had asked him if he could wait a week for our anniversary. And his answer to that question was, no, they need me, and I've known them longer than I've known you. Oh my, oh my, oh my. It was at that moment that I realized I had made a mistake, that this man was going to put friends over me. And I have to be honest, he did put his friends well above me, probably for 12 years of our marriage. Now we were married for 20 years. And I knew before our first anniversary that I made a mistake, but I tried to make it work. I believed in my vows, and I didn't believe in divorce. So there's a lot of stories to tell throughout that marriage, which I'm not going to go into detail now, but my dad died in 2008. My family had called me and told me that he was going in for some tests. That was the night before. They called me that morning and said they were taking him back. And about an hour later, they called me and told me he was dead. And of course, I'm responding, how did we go from tests to dead? So I'd already had tickets planned to be there for Thanksgiving. He passed away in October, so I went ahead and changed the ticket and got back there as soon as I could. And I had been there for, I don't know, I was trying to make sure that his estate would get handled well and other issues that were happening at the time. So I was gone away from my husband for a while, back in my hometown where it all started, where the plans started, where my dreams started. And when I got back there, I started waking up. I started waking up to all the hopes and all the dreams that I had as a young woman. My husband was an alcoholic for a majority of our marriage. My first husband, granted, I have a perfect husband now, but my first husband was an alcoholic. And I came to realize that I was the mistress and alcohol was his wife. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. But having to deal with what I had to deal with this man, throughout his alcoholism, and it's a story. I could write a book. But I I realized being away from him for so long when my dad died, I started to wake up. I had been away from him. I was back home with family because that was one of the things I didn't like about Alaska was I was so far away from my family. And there were times financially that it was just not possible for me to go home. So I only went home about every 3 years or so. But for this time, I was an emotional mess with the death of my dad, and I started to wake up and remember all those hopes and those dreams. And in that brief time, I changed. And something changed about me, and I couldn't go backwards. I remember picking my husband up at the airport for the funeral because I flew out before him. And he knew right away something was different. He couldn't put his finger on it. I mean, and we spent 2 weeks there and then headed back home. He knew something was still wrong and he just would not leave me alone. So I had to tell him that I was thinking of divorce, the one thing I swore I'd never do, and that when I made a decision, I would let him know. And it took me 3 months. I mean, here I was, 42 years old, having to start over. I mean, I had a nice house, all the cars were paid for, all the toys were paid for. I just gotten out of debt, and here I am wanting a divorce and go out on my own. And the only thing I left there was with clothes. So I had to start all over. And to be honest with you, that scared me to death. It almost scared me enough to stay and be unhappy for the rest of my life with someone. So a little note there. Follow your gut. Whoever you're with, you should be able to be you. 100% you. Not I pushed myself so far down in my body that I had forgotten who I was. I'm lucky to be married to a man today who accepts me 100%, everything about me. And he's the first man that I have ever been as open and honest with as I am with him. But we're getting close. We're getting down to 30 minutes here pretty soon. But anyway, I just want to a little bit about me. I just want to say that America, let's unite. We got to stand up to the evil and the wrongdoings that our government is doing. However we can do that, I think we need to unite, whether it be we get together in our communities and we start some groups and somehow we keep in contact and we communicate with all the groups in the United States. So I mean, I will help start one. I don't know exactly what all it would entail, but I think that it's time that the government knew exactly the kind of Americans that live in America. Because I am a red-blooded American through and through. I love this country. I will fight for this country, and I will stand by her and by anyone else who feels the same way as I do. So I hope y'all have a great Labor Day weekend, and I'm not going to be posting anything till after the holidays. So you guys hang in there, keep looking forward, and start educating yourself. If you have questions, please feel free to comment below. I'll be more than willing to answer your questions, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks.